Okay, I think we are live. I'd like to welcome all the guest speaker panelists for coming in. I can also see the participants coming in. So far, we have 3 participants that are coming in as it kicks off. So maybe I will just allow some attendees, just to give a few minutes for some more attendees to come in. I know we had those registered around 23. Yes, I can see them coming in. So just a few minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, as we allow at least 10 to 15 attendees to join. But a big welcome to all of you. And as they join, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all our speakers. And I'll just start by introducing them one by one. So first of all, we are joined by Sarah Cookson, who's the Communications Director at GetSafe Online. Sarah, a warm welcome to you.
Thanks, Diana. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Great. I would like to also welcome with us Julien Niyingabira, who is the Division Manager, Rwanda Health Communications Center, Rwanda Biomedical Center. Julien, great to have you on the show. Oh, sorry, on the webinar.
Thank you so much, Diana. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. I would also like to welcome with us joining this very important webinar today, Mr. Peacemaker Mbungira Mihigo, who is a media policy analyst at the Ministry of Local Government, Rwanda. Mr. Peacemaker, it's great to have you here on this webinar.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much for giving us your time. I would also like to welcome Akintayo Jabbar. I don't know if I'm allowed to call you Tayo throughout the call, but Akintayo Jabbar, great to have you here. He's representing the Kigali Global Shapers, and he's a shaper.
Thank you very much, Diane. It's okay to call me Tayo throughout the program, and I'm definitely happy to be here. Happy to be here and have a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome Ghislaine Kayigi, who is the Chief Cybersecurity Standards Officer at the National Cybersecurity Authority. Ghislaine, great to have you on this call.
Thanks, Diana. Thanks for having me.
Great. Let me just check in and see with our participants. Okay, I'll just give it a minute or two as they come in before we get cracking. Thank you. Okay, as they come in, I think we're ready to start. The first question will be to you, Sarah. Do you think we should wait a few minutes or should we go on?
I think let's start. Why not?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. People will come in as
Yeah.
the webinar progresses. I can see also a couple of us are working from home. So I know the pandemic started last year, but I think remote working is still something a couple of us are still doing, and some are also in the office. So my first question, oh, and I'd also like to just start by introducing myself. Sorry, I forgot about that. My name is Diana Mpisi, and I will be the moderator for this webinar. And the webinar, as many of you know, for those who are just quickly joining, is on fighting misinformation online. This is a campaign that has been happening in November, hosted by GetSafe Online. GetSafe Online is an organization based in the UK, but also runs its campaigns in Rwanda, and is really dedicated to offering online practical free advice on online safety to around 19 of the countries it works with in the world. GetSafe Online Rwanda has been here since July 2020 and has run a series of campaigns since last year until this year on online safety and different themes. So the theme for this day, for this morning, is fighting misinformation online. And as much as we know that the internet is a huge place, it's a massive resource where people have access to information, access to studying, to work in every field, subject or topic. You know, it's a very wonderful platform, but at the same time, it's also easy to be misinformed. They are the deliberate misinformation campaigns, and as much as it's easy to get information, it's also as easy to be misinformed. So it's we thought it would be very important to share practical advice from different angles on how to fight misinformation. And my first question, like I said, will go to Sarah. And the question will be addressed to Sarah and thereafter to the other participants. And we will have a Q&A session. So to the attendees joining, please, you know, put up your hand you will see there's a part where you can raise your hand in this on the webinar, just to share your questions. There's also a Q&A session where you can write down your questions in the Q&A box and I'll read them out later. I hope that's clear. And we have an hour and a half for this webinar and we will keep to time. And to each of the participants, all the questions that are asked to you, if you can keep it, you know, at least under 5 minutes, so we can allow for back and forth between each other, and as well as a Q&A, an intense Q&A with the attendees. I hope that is clear. So Sarah, the question to you is that GetSafe Online has been a leading source of unbiased, factual and easy to understand information on online safety, working in 19 countries across the globe. Could you kick off the discussion by just defining, how can we define misinformation, one, and two, if you could share with us what are the most common forms of misinformation that you've experienced, that GetSafe Online has experienced in the countries GetSafe Online works in to experience to promote online safety. Over to you, Sarah.
Well, thank you very much, Diana. And firstly, can I say how pleased GetSafe Online is to be promoting online safety in Rwanda once more, and a massive thank you to all the panelists that have joined us here today. It should be a really interesting conversation. At GetSafe Online, our whole ethos and belief is that the internet is an amazing place. You know, it provides opportunities for all of us, possibly which has been highlighted even more since the pandemic, a bit like Diana alluded to, you know, whether it's remote working, online shopping, chatting to family, you know, the internet's a wonderful place and we never want to make people think otherwise. But as we scroll through social media, we look online, there are lots of stories that we read and we see, and we do come across information, you know, that isn't necessarily accurate. And what happens is that rumors, myths can sort of spread very, very quickly without anybody necessarily stopping and checking if what they're reading is credible, if it's accurate. And suddenly information is spreading around and causing concern when it might not need to be. Occasionally, you know, we see it where, you know, information is actually deliberately made up and spread, but quite often it's a case of misinformation spreading by accident. Answering Diana's question, you know, what is misinformation? Fundamentally, misinformation is information that's incorrect, and we might see it on social media or a social media post. It might be a form of a text or an email. You might be looking at a website that's actually all, you know, full of misinformation, or it might be a document or file that's been shared with you on email, or it might be, you know, on WhatsApp from a friend. And that might be misinformation. You then get disinformation, and disinformation is actually sort of incorrect information shared in the knowledge that it's not quite or entirely true. So you have misinformation where stories get changed, I suppose, and you have disinformation where information is actually shared in the knowledge that it's not accurate and it's not true. We're also in a different world now, you know, with so many online news channels and sponsored stories. You also get what is known as fake news. So stories that are, you know, actually untrue. They might be intentionally published to make you think differently, to make you want to buy something, for example. Or it might be a fake news story that is partially true. So they've taken something slightly out of context. So it makes a story seem different to what it actually might have been when you saw the whole picture. We also get the issue with fake news where some people will then deliberately claim that a factually accurate story is fake news because they don't agree with it or they dislike it. So we've got this whole world of misinformation, disinformation, fake news that you just need to think about when you are online, and sometimes just take a step back and think about, well, is it real? You know, should I be really believing what I'm reading here? So we've just got some basic advice on what to think about when you're reading stories online and how to possibly differentiate between real and fake news. Firstly, if you're reading something, you know, ask yourself, would this actually happen? Look at the story rationally and have a think about whether are they trying to sell me something? Are they trying to make me change my mind about something? Another thing you can do is, you know, is anybody else reporting the same story? You can check to see if a reputable agency is talking about the same story, and that will just give a bit more authenticity to a story you're reading. You can research the source. So if it's a story that you're a little bit susceptible, you know, not quite sure about, you know, find out who the publisher is, you know, what type of stories do they write about? Is it likely to be true, or might it be fake news or misinformation in some way? Check the facts. You know, if there's statistics in there, there are other sources where you can check the statistics that are used, if they are accurate or if they've been taken out of context in any way. And use your instincts. You know, quite often if something sounds too strange or weird, it's possibly untrue. You know, use your gut instinct, see what you think. But there's some useful tips about how to spot misinformation and fake news. And there's lots on our website, which is www.getsafeonline.org.rw, as well as other information about staying safe online. And then I was trying to think about Diana's question, you know, what examples of fake news have we seen? And I think, you know, all of us have seen fake news and stories that are perhaps taken out of context as you look at social media or if you look online. And I was trying to think of a good example. And if we were looking at what fake news might be, we've just had COP in Glasgow, which I know many Rwandan delegates attended and supported. You know, global leaders, most of us all believe that climate change is something that needs to be taken seriously, something that is happening and we need to be wary of. But you might get fake news stories, for example, saying, you know, sea levels are going to lower rather than rise, and almost provide anti-stories against what we all believe to be true and are concerned with. So it's that sort of thing, taking things out of context or trying to get you to believe something that isn't necessarily true. I hope that's a good surmise, and obviously if you've got any questions, do come back to me. But yeah, I hope that provides the answers you were looking for, Diana.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I like your practical example that you gave on climate change, especially since it's quite a hot topic right now, following the global conference. I'll definitely be coming to you on that. And also, I really appreciate the difference between misinformation and disinformation, where misinformation is deliberate and disinformation is just, you know, incorrect or inaccurate information you find online. Thank you very much. To the participants who are coming in, please keep your questions ready. We will be, you know, reading them out to the panelists later on. There's a Q&A box you can see where you can, you know, write down your questions, and then there's also where you can raise your hand, you know, when we come to the Q&A session, if you want to highlight something. Thank you very much, Sarah. That said, my next question goes to Julien. Julien Ningabila is here on behalf of the Rwanda Biomedical Center. And a key aspect of misinformation in this day and age, I would say, is also to do with the times we're living in. And by this, I mean the COVID-19 pandemic. So we know that COVID-19 vaccinations have been administered to billions of people around the world, with numbers increasing daily. But you know, also there are forms of misinformation that some of these vaccinations have taken. So in general, when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it's vaccinations, whether it's cures, whether it's, you know, different non-factual, not scientifically based theories. Julien, my question to you is, how can people learn how to counter or recognize misinformation during this pandemic, and how can they protect themselves, especially with regards to Rwanda?
Thank you, Diana, and thank you for all the participants following this discussion. I would like to actually start by commending all the efforts that are being put in place to extend vaccination to different people in Rwanda. We actually have had more than 5 million people getting at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. So it means that people are really taking up the vaccine, irrespective of the misinformation that we are observing happening here and there. And I would like to start also by identifying the forms of misinformation that we are trying to identify as we go on with the vaccination and the general response of COVID-19 in the country. The first one is religious based. People turning down the vaccines because they're trying to identify, to couple it with some scriptures in the Bible, for instance, and some other people trying to promote some conspiracy ideas, and of course trying to say that the vaccine manufacturers are controlling the world, trying to control births, all this kind of information that I shouldn't be repeating on this platform, but which is hindering vaccination efforts in a way or another. So back to your question, Diana, how people can get safe, especially online, or especially as far as those information are concerned. The only way is to verify, Sarah has mentioned about that, to verify the source of the information. We have been conducting a campaign trying to convince people to actually consume only messages that are delivered by the Ministry of Health and the Rwanda Biomedical Center, because a lot of information have been coming and being spread through social media and through mainstream media, and they were disseminating false rumors, they were disseminating fake news. So the first thing to consider is to see the source of information, because a false rumor cannot come from an institution that is in charge of vaccination or in charge of response, national response of a pandemic like COVID-19. So this is one of the things that we have been trying to say and to communicate to the people. The other thing is to actually engage. There has been a lot of engagements with the representative of all those people. Like, for instance, if we know that we have misinformation which is based on religious beliefs, there has been engagements with religious leaders so that they partner with the government to disseminate correct information to their respective communities and communicate to them healthier messages, so that we can have even uptake into those communities. So the second can be actually listening to their leaders, religious leaders, and also the third can be engagement with scientists who can explain how a vaccine works, who can explain the advantages of getting the vaccine, so that all those conspiracy which are actually based on science, on the vaccine. Some people have been saying the new vaccine technology is being experimented on people, and they're taking people as guinea pigs. So we need to get engagement into the scientific realm, so that people who are credible, people who have much knowledge about the science behind the vaccine can be actually the ones to explain to people that to counter those misinformation. So the three ways to get safer information and healthier information is to control the source of information. Who do you get the information from? And get those two main engagements, namely religious leaders engagement and scientists and professionals of medical professionals who can explain the vaccine and the response in general. So source of information is very key in getting safe information online. Thank you, Diana.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Julien. Thank you very much. That's comprehensive, explanation, and just fact checking your sources, understanding where it comes from, trying to also understand the reasons as to why certain people say what they do, and knowing that credible institutions won't be churning out such types of content. I really think also the pandemic, because a lot of us rely on internet now more than ever before. It's teaching a lot of people across the globe to be a bit more deliberate and critical when it comes to accessing information, not just about the pandemic, but by the fact that we're relying on the internet now more than ever. We're learning generally across the globe how to be more, how to understand and how to be more critical when we access information about different things people are interested in. Thank you very much for that. I would like to go to our next panelist and ask them this question. And this is to Mr. Peacemaker. Mr. Peacemaker Mbungira Mihigo, who is here on behalf of the Ministry of Local Government. He's here as a media policy analyst, and he's had extensive experience in the media policy landscape in Rwanda, also having previously been the executive secretary of the Rwanda Media Council. So, excuse me, Mr. Peacemaker, great to have you here. So over the last couple of years, there's been a rise in this phenomenon, especially recent years, called fake news, especially when it comes to social political issues. My question to you is that in Rwanda, are there legal guidelines or restrictions or even penalties that have been put in place to fight misinformation online in Rwanda? If you could share that with us, and just share with us also in your experience, how have you worked with different institutions to counter the negative effects of misinformation in the country? Over to you, Peacemaker.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you to all speakers and participants to this important forum. And I would like to express my grateful thanks to the organizer for this webinar on this important topic related to fighting misinformation online. To reply to your question, I would like, first of all, to say that we are very happy to see that people are enjoying their freedom to express their views, information, knowledge, based on opportunities that are offered by the new technology of information, the communication. And I would like here to say that our media sector are benefiting more because they have social media and online platforms that enable them to reach a big audience, which was not the case 25 years ago. It's a great achievement. Nevertheless, I would like to say that with more achievement because of this new technology of information that is developing very fast, there is also big challenge, as you have mentioned the previous speakers about misinformation and fake news. To counter the negative effects of misinformation, we have done a lot in terms of empowering our media people through trainings that have been conducted by the Media AI Council, the former Media AI Council, that was in charge of media capacity building with the collaboration with key stakeholders. I would like here to recommend the great work done by the Rwanda Biomedical Center, represented here by Julien, my brother, during the pandemic and how it has been managed. We have organized several trainings and training sessions.
Sorry, just the Peacemaker, could I ask you to switch on your video? I don't know if it has an issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Carry on. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, now I'm okay. I was saying that I'm very, very, very happy to say that we have conducted many trainings for the media people and other key stakeholders. And I would like also to take this opportunity to express our grateful thanks to Rwanda Biomedical Center. We work together in terms of helping our media to be more professional, responsible, and to enjoy their freedom, and to educate people during this period of pandemic of COVID-19. To come up on your question about what kind of legal guidelines or restrictions or penalties that have been put in place to fight misinformation online in Rwanda. We have some laws like the media law and the access information law And we have also key public institutions and the private bodies that are in charge of media development and the media regulation. And we are working as a media sector group to make sure that all stakeholders and the key actors, mainly in the media sector, are empowered in terms of raising the awareness on how we should counter negative effects of the misinformation online. Mainly, we avoid to bring penalties and the sanctions. What we consider most in terms of raising awareness is just to make many campaigns, trainings, rather than bring penalties and sanctions. That's one. And this is the big role played by Rwanda Media Commission. As you know, Rwanda Media Commission is a media self-regulation body. And with Rwanda Media Commission, we try to enforce the media code of ethics. And they are now revising the code of ethics. And in the draft media code of ethics to be validated very soon, in its Article 38, they are coming on the role of the media to check the facts, as my previous speakers have raised, to check the facts as a motto of any journalist or any person who would like to share information. That's one. And the two, they should be mindful of fake news, because it's a threat. And to be aware that how much the fake news can go viral online and they cause panic to the public. That is one of the key topics we are developing every day on a regular basis during our sessions, our trainings, and talk shows or publications. And something else I would like to mention, it's a plan to put in place a media information and the digital literacy. That is very, very critical to help our target audience, our citizens, our population who are not literate enough to have skills and to think critically when they are consuming news or any publication, because we have observed that our public are very, very keen to use social media, Twitter, Facebook, online content, on any social media like YouTube. And to protect our target audience, the public, we wanted to integrate in our media policy, because we are revising the current media policy that has been validated in 2011. So now, after 10 years around the road, we need a new media policy. And the new media policy will consider the media information and the digital literacy. That's one. And then the second, to continue campaigns. And third is to revise the regulatory framework that needs to be improved in terms of social media regulation. And then to end up my remarks, I would like also to say that so far so good, but we should also be aware that the campaign, as you have organized this webinar, should always be organized, especially for our target audience and the citizens in general. Thank you very much, Diana.
Thank you very much, Peacemaker. And just a quick correction, I kept on saying Rwanda Media Council, it's Rwanda Media Commission. So thank you for that correction. And it's good to, I picked up on the fact that you said, you know, in Rwanda, especially in terms of the media landscape and policy, we are not big on penalties, but more on training and, you know, learning the code of ethics and training as much media professionals and practitioners to stick to that code of ethics and not really big on penalization. But thank you for showing us the landscape in Rwanda, especially when it comes to misinformation. I would like to go to Ghislaine Kayigi, NCSA. Ghislaine, I know, has been very busy. NCSA has also been running a campaign since October on online safety, you know, doing various themes. And I know they also talked about misinformation. So fighting misinformation is something, Ghislaine, I'm sure you're familiar with just based on the campaign that your institution has been running for the last couple of weeks. My question to you on behalf of our panelists and our attendees here, Ghislaine, is to do with misinformation in Rwanda. You know, like I said earlier on, as easy as it is to spread it, it's also as easy to access it. So people can be, you know, deliberately spreading misinformation, and people will also innocently also be able to access it because of, you know, of the internet, the democracy that is the internet. So my question, Ghislaine, is how does the National Cybersecurity Authority work with other organs to ensure adequate measures are taken to create cybersecurity awareness amongst online Rwandan users, including awareness of misinformation and how to tackle it? So, you know, how do you partner with other organs to make sure Rwandans are aware of misinformation, and what can they do to tackle this? Over to you, Ghislaine.
Thanks, Diana. I hope you can hear me well. Yeah, I think even the first part I would say is in the question. The National Cybersecurity doesn't do the work alone. We work with other different partners in Rwanda, but also we even being part of this discussion is part of the awareness. So the National Cybersecurity in Rwanda has been conducting a national campaign to raise awareness about cybersecurity, about online safety, and the different best practices that a user can implement to ensure their protection online, to ensure that even institutions know how to talk to the people who use their services, to inform them or to train them how they can protect themselves online. But when you come to the of misinformation, we know, like my fellow panelists have shared already in their remarks, due to COVID, we all came to the realization that we all were depending on the internet and the different benefits that it provided to us, because traffic was reduced, but the physical traffic was reduced. Now the traffic went on the cyberspace. So what we're currently doing as NCSA, what we've been doing is to, one, raise awareness that there are people who use internet for good, to spread good practices, like especially when it comes to COVID prevention measures, when it comes to sharing the news of what the different across the country. There are people who use the internet to misinformation, which is misleading information, which is not true. And that information may be shared by malicious people for personal interests, to gain social influence on people, to manipulate them in order to make them think something else than what other reputable institutions are sharing. But also we also are other users who share misleading information or fake news or false advertisement to gain money or for profit gains. So we've seen through the different platforms such as YouTube, such as the different social media platforms, but also even in the media, like our panelists from the Ministry of Local Government said that even more emphasis was put into training the journalists and other people involved in the media sector on how they can be sure to share correct information that is has proof that is based on facts. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then when it comes to when there are cases of misinformation that have been identified online on those different platforms that we've said or highlighted, the National Cybersecurity will be as a point of contact of people if someone has been victim to misinformation or someone has accessed, was shared information that is fake or that is not, that they are not sure of. They can contact or report it to the National Cybersecurity Authority. And also in Rwanda, we have the cybercrime law on prevention and prosecution of cybercrime, which also states that there are other institutions who have investigate and prosecute cybercrime. So we work with those institutions, specific cases of cybercrime or offense. There's the part of reporting any case missing, and then when there's some people or some users have gone have done something that is not that violates the law, that cybercrime law, there will be pursued, there will be investigation, but through the collaboration with those particular institutions that have that mandate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ghislaine. I know there's some questions coming in from our panelists that we'll be reading out shortly. But yeah, once again, Ghislaine, thank you for that. I'd like to go to Akintayo Jabbar. And Akintayo, my question to you is really looking at young people, at youth, because, you know, the populations, not only Rwanda, but across the continent, you know, the majority is young people. Young people have increasingly, you know, more access to the internet and information. And I think they're also the most affected by these elements of the internet, such as the one that we are talking about here on this webinar today. So you're here representing the Global Shapers, and I know over the last decade, the Kigali Global Shapers has played a very important role in creating dialogue between youth and leaders in Rwanda through various initiatives, such as the Twumve Twumve platform. Akintayo, my question to you is, in what way do you think this same platform can create avenues to fight misinformation online and create awareness on this issue, especially amongst Rwandan youth? Over to you, Akintayo.
Thank you, Diana. And you're very correct. The Kigali Global Shapers has been actively involved in bridging that gap between the youth and leaders in Rwanda, majorly through the Twumve Twumve series platform, where we've brought in different stakeholders in different areas different sectors that affect every body generally, the youths and the general populace, in having conversations and enlightening people on what it is the activities of these different stakeholders and parastatals are. And I think that is going to be a very solid, that same platform is going to be a solid means to fight this misinformation by bringing in the stakeholders or different people that are involved in different parts. So for instance, the same Twumve Twumve platform could have people from Get Safe Online, a number of our panelists here. We could have you guys as guests on a single guest series or a panelist episode, if you will. where we can talk about these issues of misinformation online and actually enlighten the people who are in attendance. Another important part would be that the things that we discuss at these platforms would actually tell people about policies. So rather than just spread uninformed information online, you'd actually get first-hand information. For instance, we have a representative from the RBC here telling us the right information about about the COVID-19 vaccination protocols and processes that have been ongoing. Having such platforms like this where such representatives talk to us about the right kind of information, what is actually happening, what is right, and having people there to disseminate this information to them, they can then go ahead and carry it to their peers outside, or go ahead and write this right information on the social media platforms or anywhere else on the internet. I believe that's really strong. And another thing that we have done as the Global Shapers is earlier, or some months back, we had this training on cybersecurity where we had about 12 random youths. We did a training on a beginner course in cybersecurity, and a key part of the curriculum in that was keeping information safe and generally being safe online. So misinformation and being safe online is not just about typing information that is wrong, misinforming or disinforming people, if you will. It also goes further to even prove, or goes further to include general safety. That is, words hurt, but these things could also hurt even beyond just words, physically, socially, emotionally, mentally, in different ways. So these things have implications, they have consequences, and a key part of the curriculum that we developed for that training program actually covered this. And it's an initiative that wasn't planned to be a one-time thing. So the success of this one is going to spur us to actually continue to have it in a more regular time period, to continually carry it on. So we had about roughly 10 or 12 participants for this first pilot phase. We're looking to increase that number. And generally, once that scales, we know that we're reaching a larger audience, and this information, ignorance is no longer an excuse, basically. So we are enlightening people and letting them know about these things, and we're actively getting them involved. So, I mean, these are just two ways that the Global Shapers could be involved in that. But definitely, as long as it is reaching out to the youth and identifying what it is, the best ways to reach out to them and get them involved in this process, because it's not just an October, November process. This sort of awareness should be a lifetime process. That is, it's a way of life, basically. It's not just something that comes up in October or November. So at different points in the year, we're looking to engage the youth vis-a-vis the leaders, so that the information spreads. And we are definitely open to different ways of collaboration with the different stakeholders involved in helping make our online space safer for everyone. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Akintayo. Thank you for that, very well said and well-spoken explanation on, Kigali Global Shapers, the initiatives you engaged in, especially when it comes to, your cybersecurity campaigns that you've been running. Just a quick one, Akintayo, when did you kick off sort of cybersecurity activities as Kigali Global Shapers? I think this is fairly new. Did it start during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, that's correct. So we ran the pilots between July and August this year, but we started the planning from, I think, December of last year. So we started the planning from December, developing the curriculums, getting partners on board, and we eventually kicked off in July of this year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have some questions coming in, but before I go to that, I just want to know if the panelists have something to add, just adding to what your colleagues have been saying. Is there something you want to add, or just question before we kick off to a couple of the questions that are coming in?
Thanks, Diana. I think it's really interesting that the message seems to be consistent from all of us, that actually, yes, there is misinformation and fake news online. And actually, the best thing anyone can do is just to check the source, check who's written it, and check the facts if you have any doubt about anything you're reading that feels a bit that it might not be as accurate as you think it is. Interesting that all of us appear to be saying the same, which is interesting.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Would anyone else like to add? Okay, the first question that I think we are going to read is from Twisenge Emmanuel, and he says that I'm Twisenge Emmanuel. He has two questions. The one is, how can you make sure that news is fake news? Really, I like this question because it really takes it back to a practical level. How can you make sure that news is fake news? That's his first question. And his second question is, which strategies can be used to raise awareness of working online safely in rural areas? So those are his two questions. Strategies that can be used online to raise awareness of online safety in rural areas, number one, and two, how can you tell when news is fake news? Which of the panelists would like to take on Emmanuel Twisenge's questions?
I mean, I could go with identifying fake news. So like Sarah mentioned, the recurring theme of this discussion is, or a recurring theme is fact checking. So for every news that you see, before you take it in, before you run with it, I mean, there are different things that you need to look at. First and foremost, you need to look at the source of the information. I don't even mean the original source in itself. I mean, where did you find that information? Did you find it on Facebook? Did you find it on Twitter? What account posted this news? So that's the first level of your verification of the validity of this piece of news that you have seen. Is this a trusted source? If it seems like it, or you can't make sure of it, what is the source that they are citing as where we have found this information? So you go to maybe their website or their own, that's the original source of the information. You go to their website or their own personal accounts. Have they said anything about this? Now, if you can't find any of that, I believe you can then go ahead to Google this information. I'm a technical person, so I'm just putting this out there that one of the ways to find valid information online, especially if you're using Google, you could Google a topic or Google whatever it is that you're looking for. And in the Google tabs, you have images, news, and some different tabs, depending on what it is that you've searched for. I particularly would advise you to go under the news tab. So now when you go under, you search for something, you go to Google and you go under the news tabs, then if it is valid news, there's definitely the possibility of different news sources having posted such information. So if you can find one or two trusted sources backing that same information, then you know whether that news is valid or not. Otherwise, it is most likely going to be fake news. So I think that helps.
Any other panelists, especially his second question with regards to, promoting online safety regarding fake news in rural areas in Rwanda?
Yes, I certainly at Get Safe Online, that's something we've really worked hard to think about. And I'm sure a lot of our panelists will have good ideas and thoughts as well about how to reach rural areas in Rwanda. It's really important, I suppose, you know, with the digital transformation and more people becoming online, it's more important than ever that they do so safely. So making sure the right online safety messages reach everybody is really important. We've taken a couple of tacks. We show online safety videos to buses that reach out to the wider parts of Rwanda, out of Kigali, and as far and wide as possible. We also do campaign work on radio, again, just to get the online safety messages out and available to as many people as possible. And we also run what's called the Ambassador Scheme, where we have local representatives across Rwanda, in Kigali and in more rural areas, who are trained and understand the importance of online safety and how to share those messages with their networks, with church groups, with schools. So again, just reaching as many people as possible, as efficiently as possible. So those are the sorts of things we've looked at, and I'm sure Ghislaine and others, you might have other thoughts and strategies as well, but would be great to hear your thoughts as well if you have any.
Thanks. I think the question, I want to also compliment on what Tayo just said on how to detect that some information may be fake news or fake information. I think all the different signs of checking or fact checking that he shared before are true, but I would like to also add that normally when it's legitimate information or correct information, if it's coming from a certain institution, they won't ask you to do anything in return. They will just be informing you or encouraging you or advising you to do ABC things. There will be like, yeah, but when usually with fake information or false information or false advertisement, they will ask you to do something in return. So I think that's one other thing that we've realized or seen from this type of fake or misleading information. And on the second question on how to raise awareness in the rural areas, one additional thing that we also realized is that during the campaign is that we also needed to develop some content or material, awareness material in Kinyarwanda, because sometimes we may be, because we are professionals, we are technical people, use other languages that not the majority of people in Rwanda use. So one thing we learned is that we were encouraged to use the Kinyarwanda language, which will, and that content or the material, that awareness material will reach far and to many people. And also to add on what Sarah said, to use the radio stations, TV shows, yeah, to reach many people as possible. But also one thing we were wanting to do is to involve also the local governments in those different rural areas, and also work with the academia, with the students, train some of them, but also have them also train the people in their communities. So those are some of the things we want to try in the next campaigns, but also in other sessions, like Tayo said, that not just to have these activities in the month of October and November, but to have something happen regularly, though there are specific months dedicated to the awareness, but to also have activities spread throughout the year. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Peacemaker, did you want to add on this? I saw you switching on your video some time back.
Yes, Diana, I would like also to emphasize the need to have the media information digital literacy. That will help, as I have said, to help our citizen to be critical, mindful about any content that is published online or through electronic media. That will help a lot in terms of helping to counter negative effects from the fake news. That's one. And the second, we should also involve the education system. All schools from the primary, secondary, high schools should have modules about how the media and online platforms are working, and to raise from the low level up to the high level, so that our fresh graduates from secondary schools or high schools can be mindful about how to use the media and how to have skills and the knowledge in terms of thinking critically. That will be also very important in terms of having a long-term strategy to counter these problems of misinformation and fake news. That was my point. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you very much, Peacemaker. I personally have a question, but before I do, I would like to just read a question from one of our attendees. And we have a question from Esther, and Esther asks, hello, thanks for the discussion. There is a gap in legal knowledge on online safety. How is this gap going to be filled? I think maybe next time we'll invite a lawyer. But yeah, how do we look at the legal sort of repercussions when it comes to online safety? To misinformation. There's some people who, would spread misinformation without thinking of the legal aspects of it. So her question, I don't know if one of the panelists can attempt to answer it, the gap in legal knowledge online and how this gap can be filled when it comes to misinformation.
Diana, actually, it was something I was thinking about when I was thinking about today's session and misinformation. And again, correct me in Rwanda how it works, but in the UK, where we have our national newspapers, like the Telegraph or the Times, anything they publish really has to be factually correct, else they will face legal challenges if they've published something that's incorrect. And that is almost the glaring gap between what happens online and what happens with official publications, is that there is that legal discord where people can write things online that aren't necessarily accurate and get away with it. So I suppose it's a really good question, and I think it's something for debate and thought as we move forward in this online world. So I think it's a really good question, and I think certainly from a UK perspective there is that glaring gap, and I suspect is it probably similar in Rwanda as well. I'm sure Peacemaker or Ghislaine would have thoughts on that as well, but certainly yes, I think it's a good question, and I think it is an issue for discussion and to try and resolve, I suppose, as we move forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Peacemaker or Ghislaine, would you like to tackle that question? How are we doing in Rwanda when on the legal landscape when it comes to online misinformation?
Thank you, Diana. As you said before, we should engage the justice sector to review our laws and to align our media law, access to information law, the cyber crime law with the current trends related to the misinformation and the fake news. That's one. And the second, we should also use our media platforms, as my previous speaker have raised, to focus on rural areas. We have community radios around our 5 provinces. We should take this opportunity to use these platforms to continue the campaign to raise awareness of our citizens who are very, very, very keen to listen to any radio show. And as you said, we should also try to see how to put in place a holistic approach of engaging all key stakeholders to see how we can fight the misinformation, because all institutions, public, private, civil society organizations, they have their department in charge of public relations and the communication. And from this perspective, all plans that are done in terms of communicating what these specific institutions are doing, they should also integrate or consider how to communicate effectively and how to fight misinformation and how to monitor any communication done and to see how we can holistically, as I have said, to fight misinformation and fake news. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peacemaker. The last question comes in from Berlin Bahizi, asking that what are the policies and regulations that are in place to prevent misinformation and disinformation? I feel like this question is similar to what we've been discussing with Esther. You know, the policies that are in place when it comes to misinfo and disinfo. You know, Peacemaker, you talked about the code of ethics. Ghislaine, you talked about how the National Cybersecurity works with other organs to prevent this. You know, Global Shapers, you've also contributed to this discussion, and Sarah, regarding your initiatives. But I feel like we've answered this, unless someone wants to add to Berlin's question before we go to the closing.
Yes, I would like to add something. I think I'd already mentioned it earlier, but in Rwanda we have a law published in 2018 on the prevention and punishment of cybercrime. So, and misinformation is also under the offenses that is investigated on and punished in accordance with what the law says. So the law is available, it's public, anyone can get access to it, and it explains in detail that the specific offenses that someone will be investigated on, and also before they even start the investigation, they will first even talk to the person in question, see how they can prevent the issue to proceed. But if that person decides to keep on going against what the law prohibits, then the law will come into effect, and it's clear, and it's the one that the organs that are in charge of investigating and prosecuting these crimes follow. And yeah, if anyone needs to read it, it's available on the website of our institution or Minijusto and other institutions. That's what I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ghislaine. Thank you for that. Yeah, we also need to, after this webinar, we'll also be sharing a couple of resources on where to find information, especially the areas, the topic areas that our attendees asked, you know. So if it's referring people to the Ministry of Justice to look at the cybersecurity law, if it's referring media practitioners, like Peacemaker said, to the Rwanda Media Commission to look at the Code of Ethics, we will definitely be doing that after this webinar, and just leading people to resources in Rwanda, especially when it comes to fighting misinformation online. I think we're coming to the close of the webinar. I'd like to thank everyone. This is the the part that's quite interesting, because we are going to give closing remarks. I would like to hear your opinions, just having listened to each other, having answered the questions from our attendees as we close. But I had one last question from myself. I don't think we really tackled it, and I think it's quite difficult to tackle. My question is why? Why is there misinformation? I mean, I understand disinformation, I understand inaccuracy, I understand it, non-factual, incorrect, but this deliberate campaign, whether it's social, political, when it comes to votes, we saw what happened in various countries in elections when there was misinformation to sort of influence voting. But other than that, I don't know if some of you panelists can answer the why. Why do people deliberately go out there to spread misinformation? What is the possible outcome, expected outcome for such things? I know it's not an easy question. I don't know if one of you would like to answer it, but even during the organization of this theme, I was just thinking, this is important, people need to know, but why do people do it? So I don't know if any of you are keen on answering this. Tayo, I see you kept on nodding your head at one point. Maybe you'd like to start.
Yes, it's an interesting question because, and I think my short answer to that is each person has an agenda. So everyone who puts out any form of information out there has an agenda. So we've seen cases where wrong information could tilt the stock prices of, say, different organizations out there, or you want to sway public opinion about something. I mean, again, like I said, it depends on what you're setting out to achieve. You channel the information to the right demographic, even though it's the wrong information, and definitely the reactions from there. It's usually like a domino effect. Like you put out the information, people react, and then something happens. Stock prices could change, people's sentiment towards a particular item. So for instance, a lot of misinformation was spread about the COVID-19 vaccine, and we literally have an army online that is against the COVID-19 vaccines and so many other things as such. So I think it depends on the agenda that you're setting out to achieve. And like you said, it is a hard question, and I think we can all forgive ourselves if we can't put a pin on this is the exact reason why people do it. I mean, people do it for different reasons. And I guess for that same reason, it is not going to stop or end anytime soon. The onus is on us to just be able to identify these things and help as many people as possible to be able to identify such wrong, fake information online and do with it whatever they feel they would after the fact, which is identifying that it is wrong information. Yeah, that's my piece.
Thank you, Akintayo. Would anyone else like to just add to that? Yes,
Yeah.
Something.
Julia, and then Peacemaker. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I just want to bring my small comment on your question, Diana. I will not be exploring any theoretical frameworks. I will just be talking from what I have been able to observe in a couple of months that I've been following this issue of misinformation online. People spread false rumors, false information, and fake news, especially in the health sector, because somehow it is paying with access to means of broadcasting like YouTube channels and so on and so forth. People can put out content without control, without pretty much control, without any other things. And the more they get to be sensational in their content, the more they get to get more people. I hear they get rewards from that because the ways of getting payments, the ways of getting rewards is based on viewership, is based on readership. So as they get to incite people to open the content they're putting online, here there's a kind of reward that they're getting. So people deliberately put out any content so that because the initial purpose of them doing so is getting more people subscribing to their content. So I think this can be one of the reasons that people can look at. And Ghislaine has quite mentioned about that. And I think that's the reason. If we can get if we can get the way of bridging this gap of legal pursuing people doing so, I think we can bring a solution to that problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julien. Peacemaker, you wanted to say something very quickly?
Yes, I would like to add to what my brother Julien have said. The human being, by nature, is interested into something which is uncommon, something which is unusual. And that is the secret behind how people, why they are very, very interested to misinformation, to fake news. They want something which is unusual and sensational. And people exploit this weakness from the human being who is attracted by something which is uncommon and sensational. And that is the big challenge. And the flow is ours in terms of fighting this trend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like us to just give a closing comments so we can end on time. Just closing comments on the way forward when it comes to misinformation. How can we protect ourselves? What can we do with others to really, stop this spread? How can we collaborate with others? Whether it's institutions, whether it's initiatives like Kigali Global Shapers. So just closing remarks from each and one of you. And I'll start with you, Sarah. Over to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much to all the panelists. It's been a really interesting discussion and a topic that I think we all feel quite passionately about. It's something that we want to work towards fighting, as Diana so articulately put it as the discussion point. And I think it's a challenge that we're going to face for the years to, the next few years. And it's how we entice people away from that, as Peacemaker explained, that sensationalism of fake news potentially, or misinformation, which makes people share it even more and helps it build momentum very quickly. So I think we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and working together and moving forward in a positive way to try and fight it and minimize it is only a positive thing. So yes, thank you for putting this together, and I look forward to further discussion on the same topic and finding solutions to how to minimize it as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Closing remarks, over to you, Ghislaine, on behalf of the National Cybersecurity Authority.
Thank you, Diana. In concluding, I'll first thank each and every panelist present today. From NCSA, even through the campaign that we've been conducting in the past month. So one thing we always recommend to people is that they should be cautious and vigilant with every information or content that they consume or they have access to through different platforms, but also to fact check any messages that come their way before they share it with others, in order to minimize, like we said, in order to minimize the spread of false information. And another thing is to encourage people, in case they come in contact with any case of misinformation or fake news or information that they're not sure about, and they see that it's being shared fast and with various people, to report it to either NCSA or other relevant authorities to make sure that they're addressed and instead true and correct and the right information is spread instead. And as Sarah said, we'll continue to have other discussions on this topic, but other topics related to online safety of users. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ghislaine. Like I said earlier on, we'll definitely be directing people to these resources that you mentioned, the NCSA website, the Ministry of Justice, the cybersecurity law. I know recently Rwanda released the new personal data and protection law. So there's a lot out there. We just need, our job here, like you said, Peacemaker, this is our platform to have such sort of discussions and orient people to all these sorts of information that will protect people online. I would like also closing remarks from you, Peacemaker, before I go to Akintayo and Julien.
Thank you very much, Diana. I would like, on behalf of the Ministry for Local Government, to extend and to express again my appreciation to you for organizing this important forum. And I would like to reiterate our commitment as the Ministry for Local Government to make sure that we have a media policy which is inclusive and which is considering this important problem and that we should overcome. And we will make sure that our media policy considers the strategic policy actions to work closely with any stakeholder to fight misinformation and fake news, and to protect, because we are working, after all, we are working for the benefit of our citizens. So we will make sure that we try to see how we can protect our public, our citizens, so that they can enjoy and trust people who are using online platform to inform, to educate, and to entertain as well. Thank you very much, Diana.
Thank you very much, Peacemaker. Julien, would you like to give closing remarks before we head to our last speaker to give closing remarks, Akintayo? Over to you, Julien.
Thank you, Diana. I will only talk about 2 points in my closing remarks. And first of all, I would like to, before I jump to my 2 points, I would like to thank all the panelists, especially my true brother, Peacemaker Mbongira Mihigo, and everyone who was on this panel, and people who have asked questions. So the first thing is us being responsible, taking this responsibility. We need to cut the chain of transmission whenever we see this kind of misinformation, because we are now informed to know what to spread, to know what to share and what not to. Sometimes most of the things are shared and they are transmitted not because we want to share misinformation, but because we want other people to get to experience the same effect we experienced when we received those messages. For instance, when something comes and makes you laugh, you want to share the same thing because you want other people to laugh at those things. So we need to take responsibility and cut the chain of transmission whenever we know that the things we are about to share, it consists of misinformation and consists of something that can hinder any beneficial program to get to other people. The second we have talked about that is about fact checking. We need to see first, who are we getting the information from to be able to share those information. Whether it's something related to health, it must be from the Ministry of Health, it must be from any other credible source for us to share those information first. So we are actors in this fight, and we need not to repeat those misinformation, either for joking or any other purpose that might lead us, because it consists of hindering of beneficial programs. So thank you very much, and my pleasure to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. I know the main topic was just misinformation, but we thought maybe we could also just touch a bit on the pandemic, because there's a critical, effect of that. But thank you just for even coming through and sharing your very important insights with us. I'd like to go to Akintayo, closing remarks. And thank you also once again on behalf of Kigali Global Shapers, coming onto the webinar and also giving a voice to youth, because that's what we've been sort of tackling from your submissions. Over to you, Akintayo.
Yes, thank you, Dan, for having me, for having the Kigali Global Shapers as a part of this conversation. We really appreciate the platform, and we hope that, given our submissions here today, that we would get further collaborations from everyone here present. So I'm acknowledging the panelists as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, and just making an open call that the Kigali Global Shapers we are open, we're available for collaboration to help spread the awareness and information about the seriousness of this topic. And just for something for our attendees as well. Everyone has, like Julian mentioned, we are all actors, and we need to take responsibility for some of this information that we have seen online. Like, after seeing the information, what do we do with it? We've talked about reporting and not sharing, not transmitting it. But another way is most of these various social media platforms, so whether it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or some websites, they usually have a block or report option. So you report this information, whatever post you see that is wrong or harmful, you report it to the platform and choose whatever category it belongs under. So whether it's hate speech, fake news, is it inciting, or what have you. So when you do that, you stop the information dead in its tracks where you've seen it. It's not propagated from there anymore. So like you said, we're all actors in this, and we're all in this fight together. And hopefully in the coming years, this will become an issue of the past. Not that it won't be there anymore, but we'll be sufficiently equipped to fight it or disregard it wherever it is that we see it. So yes, thanks for having me again.
Thank you very much, Akintayo. Very well said. Yeah, thank you to everyone, to GetSafe Online, represented by Sarah, to National Cybersecurity, represented by Ghislaine, to the Kigali Global Shapers, represented by Akintayo, to the Ministry of Local Government, represented by Peacemaker, and to the Rwanda Biomedical Center, represented by Julia. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting this, and also just listening to your very important interventions and submissions. And also massive thanks to our attendees who managed to, share their questions or their comments. Thank you very much. We'll be posting this on the GetSafe Online YouTube channel. It's been live streamed on Facebook, and again on our social media platforms. GetSafe Online will be orienting people to the many resources all of you speaker panelists have mentioned in the Fighting Misinformation Online campaign. So thank you very much. I know it's 12:30 in Kigali, time for lunch for many of us. So not only is it bon appetit, but enjoy the rest of your week. And thank you once again. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.